Good morning, Rabboisai. We're going to try out a new device today. Let me know if this works. This guy, instead of Verizon. I don't know what the difference would be, but let me know if you see a difference. Sponsored, the Refuah Shlema by Anonymous. Refuah Shlema for Feivel David ben Bela Freidel. Oh, I think I recall that name, now that I'm thinking about it. I don't want to give it away, but it's somewhere in the East Coast, I think. Okay. This one. Another anonymous. Such tzaddikim, such... You would wonder where all these anonymous people come from. I mean, especially to a shir like this one, the most unanonymous person in the world. I'm also anonymous. I go on the Yeshiva World News and Ami anonymously a lot these days. Sponsored anonymously on the 7th Yartzeit, Gimel Mar Cheshvan of a Rav Agoyin, Maran Ovadia Yosef, Zeichet Tzadik V'Kodesh L'Bracha, who restored the crown of Sephardic Yiddishkeit. This guy is mamish, he's into Achdus. He uses Yiddish words together with the Sephardic. May his memory be a zchus, not a zchut, for all of us to grow in Torah and mitzvot, Yirat Shamayim and Yirat Tzon, that we be zocheh to see Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mira b'yamenu. Amen. Shekoyach. Great email today. Just got it, actually. I was going to read Avi Mandelbaum's email. Sorry, Avi. You're going to love this, though. This is from Eliyahu Luria. Dear Rebbe Eliyahu, what a pleasure. It's finally writing this email. I would like the listeners to know that this year is like an IV for wisdom. Though I love this year's content beyond any other alternative online, I especially love playing the game of looking for Rebbe Eli's dropped tidbits of life wisdom that he likes to scatter total geschmackness. I'd like to introduce myself in case my life story can give some chizuk. And yes, it does. I am Latvian. My whole family, including myself, were born there. My non-Jewish grandmother from my mom's side was a microbiologist who studied bacteria, and she had access to a microscope with the capability to zoom into anything 100,000 times. She was in complete shock from her observations throughout her career. I recommend actually that you go on Google and you look at these pictures of 100,000, you can see like the most fascinating colors and shapes. I know what he's talking about here. Things were just too beautiful, too perfect. It could not have been random. She realized there must be a creator, but she didn't know where to look. She had to try it all. She looked in Christianity, Buddhism, but they were all nonsense in her mind. For some reason, Judaism made sense to her. Being that it is based on oneness, one creator, without conversion, my grandmother slowly started teaching us about the beautiful world of Judaism, whatever she could at least. This will connect, I assure. When I was 2 years old, my parents divorced. My entire dad's family, all Jews, migrated to America on my mom's side. All non-Jews migrated to Israel. Mamish Olam Hafoch. I went to Israel with my mom where we moved. The nearest opportune school was the famous Shuva school that you once mentioned. They accepted to take us non-Jews, but told my mother that they would eventually need to go through Gerus. However, they told her it would be advisable for her also to get through it. For how can a non-Jewish mother raise a Jewish child? Then the rabbis told her, you might as well get grandma involved in this as well. Anyways, 3 generations became Gerim. It was an Orthodox Gerus in Yerushalayim, and the Beis didn't even shed a tear, for they'd never seen a 3-generational Gerus before. This occurred when I was 7 years old. When I was 9 years old, an odd miracle occurred. My parents, who were divorced, remarried. So now his father married a Jew. We all moved to Staten Island, but unfortunately, because my father's in Frum, we didn't move to a Jewish neighborhood. It was slowing downhill from there. So focused on the new life here and learning English, we stopped focusing on Yiddishkeit. At 13, I had no bar mitzvah celebration, no tefillin. It was only college, Baruch Hashem, that I was mekayed again. Baruch Hashem for the good-hearted campus rabbis. I graduated from college, enrolled in Yerushalayim. Once there, I told them the entire story I'm telling you. And they replied, you have to do Gerus again. Halacha says anyone who converts before the age of 30 must be asked to confirm this, that, and that. Kitzer, like me saying no, so I went through a short one-day Gerus again. Now I'm 25, steiging every day. First time treading the path to finishing Shas, rebelling. Your shir is absolutely the best. I don't even need coffee to keep myself awake for it. Hope to meet you soon one day. Eliyahu Luria. So now we know who Eliyahu Luria is. Amazing email. Yishkoyach. Rabbi says, send in those emails. I'm missing them. It's been a long time since we got a really, really good one. I mean, Avi Mendelbaum's. That's tomorrow. Avi, hope to see you in Chicago soon. I just want to say hello to Reb Nachum Katz, a good old friend. I miss you dearly. And Reb Yankiv Schoenberg. All right, we'll be back in Eretz Yisrael soon. We are holding where we need to be holding. Daf Ayin Dalet Amud Aleph is today's daf. We're holding one line from the bottom, the last line. So, we are discussing, Avi, you think I'm joking? Here's the email. You see that? Avi Mendelbaum. It's right up here. So we're talking about Mavoi, Lechin Kaira, Rav Shita, Amarav. Ein Mavoi Nitor Belechi Bekaira Ad Yu Batim V'Chatzeros Ptuchim L'Toichai. So, as we finished off the sugi yesterday, we have a mavui, we have a chatzar, and we have batim. We have three things that we need to discuss. Rav is of the opinion that the only way a lechi, which is the vertical piece of wood, which could be a mashu, could be extremely thin, paper thin, or a kaira, the horizontal beam that goes across the mavui right over here, at the opening of the mavoi, you put it from side to side in the mavoi, or a standing beam. Only if you have two chatzeros, let's count them, 1, 2, into the mavoi, and in each chatzer, 2 batim, 1, 2, 3, 4. So every chatzer needs 2 houses, and every mavoi needs 2 chatzeros, a total of 4 batim. If you don't have that, then a lechi and a kaira won't help you. So what do you do if you don't have a lechi and a kaira? If, let's say, you only have one house and you want to carry into the mavoi, you do something called tzuras HaPesach. It's more extreme. It's a complete frame. 2 vertical, 1 horizontal. Or you need a lechi that's 4 tfachim wide. Okay. Amarav, ein mavoi niter belechi v'koira ad yu batim v'chatzeros ptuchim l'toichoi. Now, what about if the 2 chatzeros are considered one, because let's say a father and a son live there? So that's the same case. There's no shituf mavais here because it's a father and a son. So Rashi says Rav would hold in this case that a lechi and a kaira will not work. Although we said yesterday a lechi and kaira will work, Rav will argue. The only time lechi and kaira work is when you have halachically 2 chatzeros. U'Shmuel amar afilu bayis echad v'chatzer achas. Comes Shmuel and says, even if you have one chatzer with a house, and on this side, look at this. You have one house, but it has no chatzer. The house goes directly into the mavoi. This is the mavoi. That's enough to have a lechi. If you look closely over here, did you guys see that? It's raining like crazy in Chicago. No, there's no lechi, but there should be a lechi right over here. You know what? Here, this one is the same exact. This is from Kol HaLashon, same idea, but they put a lechi right over here. So here's a house right up into the mavui. Here's your chatzar, house and a chatzar. You don't need another chatzar over here. You just have a house. That's Shmuel's shita. Even ruins. I love this Gemara. Why? Here's a churva, picture of a churva. It doesn't have to be a house that's resided in, that people live in it. A churva. Now, why do I like churva? I'll just tell you real quickly. We're running out of time almost. It's a very long daf. Turn the page for a second, you'll see why. I made my first real estate deals were all in churvas. That's what I did. I flipped over 100 houses. I used to buy a churva and put it back together. I was a professional churva guy. In fact, any house that had mold, I called it gold. Mold is gold. I had one house. I'm not going to say if it was this one or not. One house, let's just say that the price was $500,000. From the time that I signed on the house until the time I bought it, there was a flood. and the entire basement had a layer of mold. So I went to the seller, I said, it's moldy, what's going on here? He says, okay, you know what, take off $100,000. Maisa shahaya. It took me less than a day. We peeled off that mold with bleach, we kills it, it's called, you put that paint on, kills, gewaldig. Mold is gold. So anyways, churvas. By the way, I have to say one maisa. I have to say a maisa because Louis Colum is watching. I love Louis, he's a great friend, and he watches every single shir. So this is a special maisa just for Louis. He'll be made on this maisa. There's a house here in Lincolnwood that I wanted a loan on. It was a $90,000 house. I called him up. I said, Louis, I just found a house, you're not going to believe it, for $90,000. How do I know I should buy it? Because when I told my wife about it, she said, don't buy it. So that's the first indication. That was my first simon. That's the house you need to buy. As soon as she said no, I say, oh, Gavaldi, we got to buy it right away. So he said, Louis, I promise him, Maisa Shaya, he's listening, you'll ask him. Louis said, it's impossible, so that she said, don't buy it. I said, let's put her on the phone right now. We put her on the phone, and she says, no, it's not a good deal. What are you doing? So Louis says, but how could you go wrong with $90,000? Well, the foundation was a shtickle crooked, like it was starting to sink. You can't buy it. Anyways, I think it was like $20,000. I lifted up the house, he put stuff underneath. At the end, I sold it for like close to $500,000. Everything was great. Of course, she wasn't Moida Emes, but anyway, that was the Yisrael. Louis, you'll tell them. Al Kopanim.
These must be the golden nuggets that Luria was talking about.
The golden doves? The golden what?
No, the nuggets of advice. The nuggets
the nuggets of advice. He's not married, he doesn't chab yet. One day he'll chab. No, listen, that was my thing. I couldn't do a real estate deal if my wife said it's a good deal. If once she said it's good, we're on the same page in real estate, it's a riot, something's wrong over here. Anyway, when she said it's no good, I used to jump. Well, not really, but that was my first simon that we got to go for the deal. Anyway, we said we're not going to make fun of the wife anymore. We're not dealing. But this is real estate advice. This is not marriage advice. A question. Rabbi Yochanan says a churva. Well, nobody lives in a churva. You can't live in it. It's full of mold. What about if you have a bunch of grapes going right into the up against the maveh? So instead of a churva, you have vines. You have a whole vineyard. One side you have a house. The other side you have a vineyard. Givaldik. It's more valuable. The vineyard is more valuable than a churva. No, it's only a churva. Why? The chazi ledira. Somebody could come along and renovate it and flip it. It's great. It has a roof. The bottom line is it has a roof. It's a house. Avol shvil shekramen. What are you talking about? It's a tree. A tree is a chatzar. What are you saying? You can't live there. Loi. Omer Abuna Bar Chinino. Va'azder Rabbi Yochanan Tamei. Rabbi Yochanan, who says churva is considered like another chatzar, he's l'shitasoi. Goes according to his own shita. This not Omer Reb Shimon. Or Reb Shimon Omer the Goyer said, "Echad gagois ve'echad karpefiois ve'echad chatzerois." Remember this from Masechta Shabbos. I dug it up. Baruch Hashem, I found it. I just added some red and blue. So if you have one category of rishus, you have a karfaf, you have a chotzer, you have a rooftop. So we know you can't go from a house to a chotzer. But since these are one category, you could carry from one to the other, jump around throughout the whole city, go from the karfaf to the chotzer, carry like that. Rishus achasem lekelim. Why? Because they're considered one category of rishus. What kind of rishus are they? The rishus that are not roy ledira. These are not livable, habitable places. These are rooftops. Who lives on a roof? A karfaf, wide open area. So the halacha is, says the Gemara, if you have lekelim sheshavsu letoichan, v'loy lekelim sheshavsu b'toich habayis. If you have, let's say, a football, some sort of kli, a bicycle, in the karfaf, and it was here from before Shabbos, so I can move it from the karfaf to the chatzar, from the chatzar to the rooftop, and keep on going. But if it was inside my house, then it's problematic. Then you cannot do it. V'omarav, halachik Reb Shimon. And Rav comes along and says, the halachik is like Reb Shimon, v'hu shaloi ervu. That's because they never made an Eruv. Aval Eruv gazrinun dilma osila puke mone de batem lechatzer. So comes the Gemara and says that if they made an Eruv where you can carry from your house into the Chatzer, so now I'm concerned you're going to go from your house to the Chatzer and bring it to another Chatzer somewhere else. You're going to forget. If the Kalim were in the Chatzer, the bike was over here before Shabbos, so I'm allowed to go within the same category, that's fine. I'm never going to be over and bring it to another type of Rishus. But if it's inside the house within the blue when Shabbos started, and I made an Eruv, now I can't even carry something that was a bicycle that was in the Chatzer. Why? Because if I carry something from the Chatzer, I'm going to carry from the Chatzer to the car to another Chatzer. So I'm going to think that I could also carry something from the house into another Chatzer. That's because there's an Eruv. It'll confuse me. But if there's no Eruv, then I know that they have no relation. Whatever's outside I can carry, whatever's inside, I'm not going to touch at all. It doesn't matter, even if they made an Eruv, even if they didn't make an Eruv, I cannot carry. So even if the Chiddush is, even if they didn't make an Eruv, I can't carry from the Chotz to the Karv. Halacha Kirb Shimon, Bein Ervu, Ubein Loi Ervu. Okay? Alma. So what does the Gemara say? Loi Gazrin Dilma Osila Puke Mone the Batim Lechotzer. Hachanami Loi Gazrin Dilma Osila Puke Mone the Chotzer Lechorba. So if I'm not concerned, says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan says that even if they didn't make an Eruv, or even if they didn't make an Eruv, I could go from here to there. I'm not concerned that I could take the bike from the Chatzer and take it to another Chatzer. I'm not concerned that I might take out something from the house and go to another Chatzer. In other words, I'm not going to mess up Rishuyos. I'm not going to go from a private domain from a house to another Chatzer and get confused. So too, I don't have to be concerned that I'm going to go from the Chatzer, from my Chatzer, into the Churva. I'm not worried about a Churva. So Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara says, a little bit of stretch. You look in Taisus, maybe if you have a kash or not. But the point is, I'm not concerned I'm going to go from the Chatzer into a Churva, and the Churva is considered as if it's a Chatzer, and therefore I can make an Eruv. I'm not worried about the Churva that I might go into it, because I know that it's a different type of Rishus. Yosef Rabroino v'ko Omar lahoshmaita. Rabroino was saying over what we said on top of the Amud, that Shmuel holds that if you have a Chatzer with just one, it's a Chatzer with a house, and the other side doesn't have a Chatzer at all. It's just a house. Here, where is it? No. This is no good. We're using the floor today. Pretend this is a house. Pretend this churva is a house. I can't find the other one, somewhere under the pile. But if this is a nice house, but it has no yard, it's right directly on the mavu. You see how it's right there by the mavu without a chatzar. Shmuel says that's enough to put a lechi right over here. You don't need two houses and a chatzar in order to make a lechi. It's enough to have one house and a chatzar and one house without a chatzar. Ask the Gemara, Amar le Rebbe Lazar, Bar Rav, you're a yeshiva guy, yeshiva bacher. Amar Shmuel Hachi. Did Shmuel really say that? Amar le yeah. Amar le Achveli Ushpize, show me where he lives right now. I need to go visit him immediately. Achveli, here, he lives right over there. Also the Kamei Shmuel, he knocks on the door. Amar le, Amar Mar Hachi. Is it true that you Shmuel said that you don't need, in order to make a lechi and a kaira, you don't need two houses and two chatzeros. It's enough to have one house and a chatzer plus one house without a chatzer. Omer le'in, I in fact did say that. Ask the Gemara, V'amar Huda Omar, you yourself said, Ein lanu be'eruvin elo kilshoyin mishnaseinu. Rabbi Yisai, anybody remember when we learned this? It seems like years ago. When it comes to Hilchos Eruvin, it's exactly like what the Mishnah says. We have to be medayik in the words of the Mishnah. We had it exactly a week ago. After Sukkot. Believe it or not. I know, to me it seemed like it was months ago.
Well, wasn't that specifically that Mishnah Mishnah?
Yeah, and it's this right here. But very good, yeah. Good memory, yeah. I also, when I started getting my bearings, I was like, wait a minute. They said over there, the Maskonas HaSugya was, it's only in one specific place. I looked up over there, and it was this specific place. Ein lonu be'eruvin elo kilshoy mishnoseinu. When it comes to Eruvin, we have to be medaik in the Mishnah. Sha'amavoy lachatzerois kechotzer labatim. So this is the Mishnah we had the other day, yesterday. That, again, the last words in the Mishnah, if you look at Ein Gimel Amud Beis on the top of the page, right at the end of the Mishnah, Sha'amavoy lachatzerois. Now what? The Mishnah is telling us, just like you treat a Rishus HaYachid, a house, and a Chatzar, you understand by yourself that you can't take something out of your house into a Chatzar, because a Chatzar is for the communal usage. It's more like a Rishus HaRabim, and your house is a private domain. So it's like going from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim. So too, don't make the mistake and think that you can go from a Chatzar, which is communal, to a Mavui, which is communal. Don't make that mistake. Just like you can't go from your house to your Chatzar, you can't go from your Chatzar to your Mavui. They're not the same. And you need a sheet of mavais. Okay. But look at the words. The words say, Shahamavoi lachatzei rois, plural. Not Shahamavoi lachotzer. So Rabbi Lazar is telling Shmuel, you yourself, Shmuel, came up with this idea that you have to be medayik in the words. Okay. Here, I'm throwing it back at you. Those words that you're medayik in, it says chatzei rois, plural. You need 2 chatzeiros, and each chatzar has to have 2 batim. What are you telling me? 1 chatzar is enough? Doesn't make sense what you're telling me. Ishtik. He had nothing to answer him. Says the Gemara, kabli minei or like kabli minei. He asked him a bomb question. Usually when you're quiet, it means that you agree. But tachlis, was Shmuel agreeable? Was it a good question to the point that Shmuel reversed his opinion and said, like Rav, that in order for a lechi to work, you need 2 chatzeiros, like the diuk in the Mishnah chatzeiros. You need 2. Says the Gemara, Toshma. I'll tell you a story, and from this story, you'll be able to figure it out maybe. Dahu mavaya dahav dayer be Avos bar Ihi. There's a person by the name of Avos bar Ihi. Avad le lechia b'shar le Shmuel. Shmuel said 1 lechi is enough. Now, what do we understand right now? That we're talking about that there was a chatzar with 1 house, and the other side there was a shul. Okay, and in the shul there was a place to sleep, for the shamish to sleep. Says the Gemara, now we're turning to Ayin Daled Amud Beis in memory of my mother, Shendel Bat Aaron Hirsch, and Bracha by her son, Dr. Alan Listhouse. Shamash and Evan Aliyah. Also Ravanon, Shadye. After Shmuel was nifter, comes Ravanon. We had a few of these stories in our Masechta with different people, with Rav Nachman, whatever it was over there. Remember, in the Rosh Golus, he takes down the Eruv, not down. You gotta go physical. Somebody puts up a lechi, you rip it down. So after Shmuel was nifter, comes Ravanon and knocks it down. Omar, so Ivo says, I live in this Mavi. And it comes from Shmuel. I got a hechsher, I got a stempel from Shmuel. Shmuel said, your lechi is perfect. Nesi Rav Anon Barav. So then comes along Rav Anon Barav. Nishdei min. He took away my lechi. What's going on here? Says the Gemara, Shma mino lo kiblo minei. At the end of the day, you see that Shmuel gave a heter on a lechi to a mavui that only had 1 chatzar, 1 dwelling. The other side was a shul. Doesn't count. Says the Gemara, Laila meimelach kiblo minei. Who told you? Maybe Shmuel holds you're right, like Rav. You need to have 2 people living there. Chatzei rois. V'hacha chazonahu dahava ochel nahama bebeisei. The shamash of the shul used to eat his meals in his house. V'asa bayis bevei knishta. What's going on here? So you have a shul. Here's a shul, nice fancy shul. Next door is another house, so you have two. Here's the chutzner. Now the shul turns into a house. You know why? Because the shamish of the shul, they still have it, I think, today. There's some places where the shamish of the shul lives, like some out-of-town places. They live in the shul. They have like a little apartment upstairs or something. He sleeps in the shul. And Memela, so Memela, you have a situation where you have two houses over here. You have a chutzner over here. On the other side, you have a shul with an apartment that a guy actually sleeps in. It's not just a shul with an apartment. It's a shul that the shamish sleeps in, because typically you don't eat and sleep in a shul. It's not a beis medrash. It's a shul. But the shamish slept in the shul. So if so, what was Ivas complaining about? Ivas, I guess, was a Talmud Chacham. V'Ivas bari sovar makoim pita garam. It's beautiful. Ivas held that Shmuel doesn't agree to Rav. You don't need two houses. So what's important? All you need is one house. And that's why Shmuel said this is okay with a lechi. And the fact is, it doesn't have to do with where you sleep. It has to do with where you eat. So just because the shamish slept in the shul, that doesn't change the shul's status at all. The shul is like nothing. It's as if you have a chutzner without a house. And the shamish, wherever he ate. So in Mele you see, fakert, you see that Shmuel agreed that even though, and I forgot a very important thing. After this thing happened, the shamish no longer, in the beginning of the sugya, the shamish no longer ate there. You have to stick that in. He stopped eating there, Rashi says. But Ivas held, even though he stopped eating there, he stopped sleeping there, it doesn't matter. It doesn't go by sleeping. It goes by eating. So why did Ravana take down my lechi? It goes by eating, and all you need is one chutzner according to Shmuel. Ushmuel tamei, the Gemara says no. The Amar Mokem Lina Garim. It has to do with where you sleep, and if it has to do with where you sleep, so then the shul turns into a house, and maybe you have the shita of Rav here. It's possible that Shmuel agreed to Rav. So perhaps we don't know exactly. Did he regret it, not regret it? Maybe it's not such a great raya. You have Avos and you have Ravanan. Although it does seem like Avos kind of made a mistake. He thought it was Makam Pita.
Avos didn't know that Rav and Shmuel argue on Makam Lina Garma, Makam Pita Garma.
Right. That's what the Gemara is saying. Makam Pita Garma. Shmuel Tamei. You're saying he was such a Talmud Chacham, he knew how to make all the svar. He didn't even know what Shmuel himself holds. I hear.
And he comes to ask kashas on Shmuel from a shita of Rav that Shmuel directly argues on. Also.
Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, he was wrong. Ravanan was right for knocking down. So you stop asking, but you see Ravanan had a good time, and that's why Ravanan went and knocked down his lechi. He saw he's talking to somebody that doesn't know 100%. Ripped it out. Shmuel Tamei, Dama Makam Lina Garim. At the end of the day, there's a Makam Lina now, and then you have to finish off. But it's no longer Makam Lina. Why is it no? Because the Shamish stopped sleeping there. So because the Shamish stopped sleeping there, that's why Ravanan had to rip down the Eruv. When the Shamish slept in the shul, so now you have enough batim, like Rav holds, like Shmuel agreed to afterwards. But he stopped sleeping there. You got to rip down the Eruv. Omer Rav Yehuda Omer Rav, Mavoy shetzidoi echad oived kechavim, v'tzidoi echad Yisrael. You have a Mavoy where the guy, this guy, here's the Mavoy, right over here. You see how he did a nice little mask? So this is a guy, Mavoy, Jew. But what's interesting here in the story is that behind the Jew, there's other Jewish homes. They don't have access to the Mavoy. They have access to Rosh Hashanah. You see the crosswalk over here. So this is Rosh Hashanah. They have access to Rosh Hashanah, but not to the Mavoy. The only way they could get to the Mavoy is if they climb through a window. Here's a chalayin. They have windows between the houses. Crazy setup. You have a house, all of a sudden your neighbor opens up the window, he climbs into your house. Shalom Aleichem, here I am. What are you doing here? Oh, I want to get to the mavui. Oh, sure, come on in. It happens to be my bedroom, not a problem. Okay, Shalom Aleichem. Says the Gemara, says Rav, Yisrael, when you have a guy on one side and the Jew on the other. You cannot make an Eruv between these guys so that these guys can get to the Mavui. The Gemara at the end is going to explain it's just a concern that you're going to befriend the guy, but nothing to do with Hilchas Eruv, which we had before. So this case, again, you have a guy on one side of the Mavui, here's the Mavui in the center, guy, Jew. The Mavui divides the Jew and the guy. What about, same exact case, but instead of a Mavui, you have green grass, you have a Chatzar. Is that also a problem that these Jews that live in the back and they use a window to climb through the guy's house, they cannot make an Eruv? Amar Le'in, it applies to Chatzar as well. Dilay Amar, Mai. Okay, so that's how you read it. Because if it's not so, if there's a difference between a Chatzar and a Mavui, Mai, what would be your logic to differentiate between the two? So Abai tells him why. Hava Amina, I would think there is a reason. Time of the Rab, Mishum de Kosavar, Ein Mavui Niter Belechi V'Kaira. The point is Mavui. Rav says Mavui, the first words we read today, that a Mavui you cannot use a lechi and a kaira and a mavui. Achi you batim v'chatzeres p'tuchim l'toichai. You need houses, you need chotzer. But a chotzer, you could do a lechi, you could do an eruv. It doesn't ruin it. You don't need chatzeres p'tuchim l'toichai. So when it comes to a mavui, you have a problem that the guy's house doesn't count as a house. You need houses. You need a certain amount of houses. So you don't have the amount of houses because it's a Goysha house, not counted. But when it comes to Chatzar, you don't have that issue. Maybe that's what I would say. Says the Gemara, V'tarti l'ameli. So now, let's go, just turn the page back for a second, Ayin Gimel Amud Beis. Look at the last line in Ayin Gimel Amud Beis, the first line that we learned today. Gufa, Amarav, Ein, Mavui, Niter, Belechi, V'kaira, Achi, Batim, V'chatzeres, P'tuchim, L'toichai. If you have a mavui, in order to use a lech and a kaira to allow you to carry there, you need to have two houses that go, two chatzeres, that each chatzer has two houses. What does Rav say here? Smack in the middle of the page. Omar Rav Yehuda, Omar Rav. Mavui shetzida echad oived kechavim, shetzida echad Yisrael. This case that we had, you have a mavui, and on one hand you have a Jew, on the other hand you have a guy. You can't consider the guy's house as a chatzer. But he's telling me, according to Abaya, the problem is that you don't have enough houses. So then why did Rav have to say a whole case? He already told us, the first line that we learned today, he told us that if you have a mavo, you need to have two chatzeres, and each chatzer has to have two houses. Then he repeats himself. Rav says, Allah, to all his Talmidim. If you have a guy, on one hand, so his house is not a house. So you don't have enough houses. Okay. That's the same halacha that you just told us. You told us you have to have a certain amount of houses. So the guy's out. So the Gemara says, tzricha. I want to tell you another chiddush. I want to tell you the idea that even if the guy has a beautiful mansion, and he has all his cars in there, and he has people coming in and out, it's not considered a house lehilchos chotzer, lehilchos eruv. If I want to make an eruv, I can't consider his beautiful house as a house. End the story. That's what Rav is coming to teach us. And if I would just tell us this halacha, the halacha of a guy that lives in the chatzar, and his house doesn't count as one of the houses, you need 4 houses and his is not a house. But he doesn't mention, he tells us one story. Here's a story. There's a guy on this side, a Jew on this side. But he doesn't talk about houses. Not only that, explains Rashi beautifully. It's mashma. The whole problem of this story is because here there's a mosque, there's a blue yarmulke on top. But if this was a Jewish house, it would be perfect. You could make an Eruv. But it doesn't say how many houses. One house owned by a Jew on the other side is enough. One house here, one house here. So they're finding to tell us the story that we started out today with. Kamash malon, loydana batim kama. I wouldn't know how many. Kamash malon, batim train. Every time you have a chotzer, you have to have 2 houses per chotzer. Says the Gemara, Ashdom Rav afilu chotzer. Time of the Rav. Now, says Abai, I want to explain to you the logic behind Rav. Rav says it doesn't matter if there's a chotzer dividing the guy and the non-Jew, or there's a mavoi dividing the yid and the non-Jew. What's the pshat? The kosavar osur lasois yochid b'makom oivit kechavim. Remember the sugya, rednish mit the goy. You know, we don't want to help this one guy that lives adjacent to the goy. Now what's going to happen? If you allow these clowns to climb through the window into this house, he's going to feel comfortable living in the neighborhood with the guy. What's the problem? The guy is going to come kill him. But he's not worried about the guy killing him because his buddies keep on climbing in and out of the window. But if you tell his buddies, stop, there's no Eruv, the window doesn't help, so he's going to move out of the neighborhood, he's going to get out of there, and he won't learn from his masim. Also, lasis yachid, you're not allowed to help when the guy lives there. Omer Rav Yosef. Yachi, if that's the case, if that's the svara, Rav Yosef tells his Talmud, Abaya, I hear what you're saying, it's beautiful. Not only that, now I understand something, says Rav Yosef. Yachi, Hainu the Shmana Leila Rabbi Tavla. This is what Rav Tavla said. The Omar, Oivit Kechavim Trezimni. Rav Tavla said from his mouth the word Oivit Kechavim twice. I didn't know what he meant. Now I understand. V'lo yidana my Omar. Says Rashi, look at this Rashi, 2 pshatim in Rashi. The Rashi right before the Mishnah. V'lo yidana my Omar hashta vade mefarish l'misla de Rav Hava. Mavoi shetzido echad Oivit Kechavim. So Rav Yosef understood that Rav Tavla said the word Oivit Kechavim twice. How? Here's the sentence. If you have a mavi that one side is a guy, Oivit Kechavim, that's number one. A ma'arvim oisoi, why? Mishum da asa le'asas yachid b'makom Oivit Kechavim. So now he understands why he said Oivit Kechavim twice. You're not allowed to have a mavi that one side has a guy because you might come to learn from the guy. Rav Yosef remembered that he said goy twice. He didn't realize why he said goy twice. Now he understands that the second time Rabbi Tavla said the word goy was to explain the reason behind not doing an Eruv with a guy on the other side of the mavi. Or another pshat says Rashi, Loshen Acher, chad le'mavoi v'chad le'chotzer. The word goy is these 2 cases that we just discussed. Abaye says, is this case also applicable to a chotzer dividing the goy and the Jew? And the answer is yes. So he said, goy meaning to the one case of a mavi dividing the 2, and goy, the second case of the chotzer dividing the 2. Have a wonderful day. Caught you there by surprise, Noam? Shem Alois, Mamakim Kosicha Adonai. Amen. Yishkoyach Rabboisa, Yishkoyach for the chizuk. How was YouTube today? Nobody told me. Was YouTube better with that device? Eli.